Crash crews on runway alert know that it's a good practice to watch for incidents that could lead to a crash, such as sparks or skidding, excessive braking, or erratic maneuvers. Since the crews are totally familiar with aircraft based at their station, these signs are easy to spot, and in the event of an incident, a rescue from the familiar aircraft would be fast and efficient. But what about an unfamiliar aircraft? Well, with the range and speed of today's aircraft, crash crews never know when they're going to get an unfamiliar airplane. I knew that this station rarely sees an A-7E, and you can get a lot out of the firefighting and rescue manual, but the best way is to take every opportunity to check out the visitor. So I wasn't too surprised when the crash crewman asked if I had a minute to show them around the A-7E airplane. Well, you never know when you or some other A-7 jockey's going to need his help. So, even though I was in kind of a hurry, like all smart aviators, I took the time. I mean, wouldn't everybody? Sure they would. As with all aircraft, the A-7E has certain danger areas that must be considered. Since fuel is normally the greatest fire hazard in an accident, the various fuel loading capabilities must be known. Internally, the A-7E contains wing tanks holding 379 gallons each. Fuselage tanks hold 738 gallons. The wing drop tanks hold 300 gallons each. As for hazard areas on the A-7E, the jet engine inlet suction danger area is directly in front of the nose and extends out about 15 feet with the engine at idle power. With full power, engine suction is dangerous to a man out to 30 feet. The engine exhaust can cause severe burns and blast damage at ranges from 60 to 150 feet, depending upon engine power. The turbine blade failure area is in the vicinity of the trailing edge of the wing. Although engine improvements have reduced blade failures, a foreign object sucked into the inlet could cause the blades to disintegrate. The canopy jettison danger area is aft of the cockpit and includes the entire fuselage area out to about 6 feet on either side. Naturally, with a falling canopy, wind conditions must be considered. If the airplane has made a maximum braking stop, there is a danger area near each wheel due to hot brakes. The A-7E does have anti-skid brakes and fusible blowout plugs in the wheels. This combination has reduced the number of wheel fires, hydraulic fluid lines ruptured by high-pressure tire explosion, and ignition by hot brakes. Even so, the safest area when working around an airplane with suspected hot brakes is directly in front or behind tire assemblies. The LOX tank on the A-7E is located on the port side just after the cockpit. Removal requires only the disconnecting of 2 wires, 2 couplings, and a wing nut. Liquid oxygen must be handled with extreme care. Spilling could induce a fire or cause a bad skin burn. Accidental retraction of the landing gear is also a danger. Safety downlock collars are stowed in the nose wheel well. The collars should be secured on both wheel struts. A safety pin for the nose wheel is stowed in the right-hand avionics bay. When the engine is running, there may be high-temperature air coming from the air conditioner outlet on the starboard side of the fuselage. The A-7E may carry a smoke abatement tank internally in this area. The chemical in the tank has an orangish color and is toxic. But as with other aircraft, smoke abatement chemicals are rarely carried today, even in combat areas. These tanks have been purged and as such are not toxic or dangerous. Weapons being carried are of course always an extreme hazard, and the A-7E can carry the usual wide variety of ordnance stores with which you are familiar. These are carried on pylons mounted under the wings. It must be remembered that a bomb rack contains an explosive separation device that could cook off in a fire, so that these areas should be avoided. With multiple bomb loads, there is an explosive separation device for each bomb. This is also true of drop tank pylons. The A-7E also carries a 20mm Gatling gun mounted on the port side below the cockpit. Other model A-7s carry a gun on each side in the same area. In any case, the forward firing zone on any high-performance jet should be avoided. The approach to an A-7E after a crash is like that for any other airplane, taking into consideration its special danger areas. If the engine is running, it's a good idea to give the pilot the cutoff sign. He might be dazed but not unconscious and possibly could respond. If the airplane is surrounded by flames, you'll have to clear a way in using standard procedures. Now that will probably be the MB-5 using light water. The cockpit area, of course, should be kept cool, not only to protect the crewmen, but to prevent cook-off of the ejection rockets in the seat. All crash trucks carry a ladder designed to reach the cockpit. You can use this or reach the cockpit by releasing the A-7E ladder. However, the A-7E ladder makes a difficult work platform, and instead, the correct portable ladder should be used. When the canopy is closed, one of the critical points of a rescue is entry to the cockpit. The fastest way, of course, is to jettison the canopy, but any jettison is a hazard, and the normal means for entry is simple and should be used if at all possible. On the A-7E, the exterior canopy release handle is located on the port side of the cockpit. Pushing the button on the handle in causes the handle to unlatch, and it will pop out. Rotating the handle counterclockwise 90 degrees unlocks the canopy. If the system is still operational, the canopy will slowly open by itself. But if there is no pneumatic and hydraulic pressure, turning the handle will only unlock the canopy. To open it, lift it by the canopy handle. The canopy may have to be propped open, or it can be easily sheared away to give better access to the cockpit. In the event forcible entry is required, the canopy should be chopped through, close to the metal frame. Chilling with CO2 is not required, since the plexiglass on this airplane is relatively thin. In fact, it may shatter into small pieces. Using a power saw is sometimes quicker and does not leave jagged edges. When it's safe to do so, the fastest means of entry is to blow the canopy using one of the exterior canopy jettison initiators, which are located on each side of the fuselage. The handle is secured by thin copper wire, but a hard pull will easily break the wire. Pull the lanyard out all the way at about a 45-degree angle. In the A-7E, this is about 6 feet. Then pull hard and keep moving away, so you will be clear of the falling canopy. After cockpit entry, the first thing to do during any crash rescue is to secure the seat and canopy against accidental ejection. The A-7E has a head knocker safety for seat ejection. To pull it down, just pull until it clicks locked. Once locked, there's no danger of accidentally pushing it back up. Now the seat ejection system is secure. The safety pin can be inserted later. But remember, when reaching in the cockpit, there are 2 danger areas you should look out for. Do not pull the face curtain ejection control handle. And do not pull the alternate ejection control handle. If the pilot is unconscious, it is possible he may not be receiving oxygen. and you must quickly prevent suffocation by removing his oxygen mask. First, raise a sun visor on his helmet. Do not remove the helmet. Unfasten the pilot's oxygen mask. You should have memorized the 3 types of fasteners so that whichever type he is wearing will be totally familiar. Disconnecting the oxygen hose at the slip lock ring will automatically turn off the oxygen. Warning, do not disconnect or cut the oxygen line until after the oxygen mask is removed, since this would automatically cut off the pilot's only source of oxygen and air. The slip lock ring operates by sliding the ring up and pulling. If the airplane's engine is running, it should be shut down before beginning the next phase of the rescue. On the A-7E, the throttle is pulled aft to the idle detent, then outboard, past the detent, and all the way aft. The fuel master shutoff lever is located next to the throttle. Note that the throttle friction lock is also located here, and it is easy to confuse the 2 levers. The fuel master shutoff lever is safetied with a butterfly locking tab. This locking tab must be pushed outboard in order to pull the lever to the closed position, which shuts off the engine. If the cockpit is inaccessible or the engine controls malfunction, an emergency or remote means of shutting down the engine may be accomplished by injecting water or foam into the intake. Do not use a direct stream into the intake. Either use a spray or bounce the stream off the sides of the intake. Before the pilot is rescued from the airplane, his parachute must be unbuckled from his harness assembly. The 2 coke hip fittings are first disconnected. They may be difficult to see because of the pilot's survival gear. Coke fittings on Navy parachutes operate by lifting the locking latch upward, and with the same motion, rotating the knurled locking bar downward. Normally, the fittings will now separate. If they don't, then separate them manually. When disconnecting the 2 shoulder fittings, be careful not to pull the parachute D-ring. Coke fittings used by the Air Force are slightly different, but they operate in much the same manner by lifting the locking latch upward and with the same motion, rotating the knurled locking bar downward. This downward motion separates the fittings. If necessary, the parachute straps can be cut with a rescue knife, but this is difficult and time-consuming. As a last resort, the pilot can be released from the seat by pulling the emergency harness release handle. But this leaves 60 pounds of parachute and survival gear attached to the pilot and makes it extremely difficult to lift him from the cockpit. Finally, disconnect the pilot's NIG hose by a straight hard pull. With everything disconnected, we're now ready to lift the pilot out. This operation on the A-7E is much the same as for all high-performance jets and should be practiced from time to time by all crash crewmen using any available airplane. It's a 2-man job. The best procedure is for 1 man to straddle the nose or to stand on the edges of the cockpit, while the 2nd man remains on the ladder. On modern jets, the cockpit is several feet above ground, and pilots as well as crash crewmen have been seriously injured when they fell, so caution must be used. In case the pilot is trapped in an inverted airplane, the nose must be lifted before the canopy can be opened. The fastest way is to use a crane attached to the nose gear trunnion or to any strong structural member. If a crane is not quickly available, it may be possible to partially raise the airplane by using heavy-duty jacks. As a last resort, dig under the canopy. Chopping through the canopy may also help. Chopping through the fuselage is almost impossible due to the many stringers, consoles, and equipment. If time is available, after the pilot is rescued, safety pins can be inserted in the ejector seat and the canopy ejector. The pins are generally carried in the airplane's map case. The seat ejection system is safetied by placing the pin in the seat initiator. On the A-7E, the canopy jettison initiator is located on the port forward section of the cockpit. It is safetied by placing a pin in the initiator. Oxygen should be shut off by means of the selector valve located on the aft section of the port panel. If not already done, the safety downlock collars are placed on the landing gear. The tail hook should be lifted and secured before the airplane is moved. When it comes to the actual fighting of fires on the A-7E, a couple of points should be remembered. At my own station, crews run through procedures on an available airplane. In general, firefighting procedures are the same as for other high-performance jet aircraft listed in the NAVAIR Firefighting and Rescue Manual. The major differences are in the fuel storage areas. For this reason, fuel storage areas must be memorized for each airplane to prevent puncturing a tank. On the A-7E, all fuel is contained forward of the engine, so a bayonet nozzle can be used anywhere aft of the wing. Although wheel fires are rare on the A-7E, if they should occur, purple K powder is an effective agent. Remember, when working on an A-7E fire, that the airplane is worth 2.5 times the cost of a hangar for housing an entire attack squadron. I guess to sum the whole thing up, it does take a certain amount of time and trouble to check out an unfamiliar airplane, both for the pilot and the crash crewman. I know why the pilot doesn't mind taking the time, but about the only motive the crash crewman has is his own sense of responsibility and pride in his crew and in himself. When the time comes, he wants to do everything he can to get the man out of that airplane fast, with a minimum danger to himself. And the only way to do that is by knowing in advance exactly what you're going to do. Obviously, that fella does.